throughout my career and my life. There's a lot of
The Bloodline, WWE's most dominant faction, was thought to be finished. After Roman Reigns' grueling medical ordeal, Jimmy Uso's painful divorce, and months of external attacks, fans believed the family legacy had fractured beyond repair. But last night on Monday Night Raw, everything changed. Jimmy's twin, Uso, delivered a shocking, emotionally charged promo that left the wrestling world stunned. Speaking with the authority, presence, and calculated precision reminiscent of Roman Reigns at his peak, Uso confronted Jimmy, exposing weaknesses and demanding accountability. What unfolded wasn't just a family dispute, it was a battle for loyalty, leadership, and the survival of a legacy built on blood, trust, and sacrifice. The Bloodline story had entered a dangerous new chapter. Bloodline on the brink. They thought the Bloodline was finished. After Roman Reigns' medical ordeal, Jimmy Uso's painful divorce, and months of relentless attacks from external forces, fans believed WWE's most dominant faction had been fractured beyond repair. Wrestling's universe braced for the end of an era, assuming loyalty had died and that no one could restore the fractured legacy. Yet last night on Monday Night Raw, something extraordinary occurred. Uso, Jimmy's twin, delivered a promo that was simultaneously shocking, emotionally devastating, and meticulously calculated. The words he spoke mirrored the authority and manipulation of Roman at his most commanding, revealing a transformation from loyal soldier to calculating leader. Fans and backstage personnel alike watched, stunned, as a new dynamic unfolded in the USO family, where brotherhood was being measured against duty, trust, and the survival of a legacy built over decades. The interview that changed everything. The moment that shifted the narrative happened during what was meant to be a standard interview with Jimmy Uso. Still reeling from personal upheaval and public scrutiny, Jimmy sat in the chair attempting to repair his image, visibly broken and humbled by the betrayals he had endured. His audience saw a man who had loved, trusted, and been blindsided, grappling with circumstances beyond his control. Jimmy's vulnerability, however, was about to collide with an entirely new force. Enter Uso. He walked onto the set not just with confidence, but with a commanding presence that immediately suggested he had evolved. Observers noted a striking transformation. He moved with authority, spoke with precision, and regarded his brother not with unconditional love, but with analytical scrutiny. Evaluating loyalty and trust. Uso's voice carried weight as he addressed Jimmy. "We need to talk about your situation," he said, the pause filled with implication. It wasn't merely about a failed marriage. It was about judgment, reliability, and family security. Jimmy, initially confused, attempted to explain and defend his actions, claiming ignorance of his wife's betrayals. But Uso's response was measured, precise, and unflinching. He dissected the events with clinical detachment, pointing to signs Jimmy had missed and decisions he had taken or failed to take that endangered their family's legacy. His delivery echoed Roman's own methodical tone, combining psychological pressure with strategic evaluation. The interview room became a battlefield of intellect and emotion, channeling the tribal chief. Perhaps the most striking element of Uso's transformation was his uncanny replication of Roman's cadence and presence. Every phrase, every inflection, was reminiscent of the tribal chief at his peak, enforcing authority with quiet menace. He reframed Jimmy's failures not as personal mistakes, but as potential threats to the entire family, emphasizing accountability over sentiment. "Your wife provided intelligence that compromised our legacy," he said, each word deliberate. "Your choices have brought shame, danger, and near destruction to everyone who shares our bloodline. Observers described the effect on Jimmy as nearly physical. The calculated precision of Uso's words cut deeper than any physical assault, exposing the vulnerabilities in a bond that had always been assumed unbreakable. The clash of heart and hierarchy. Jimmy's reaction was immediate and intense. "You're talking to me like I'm a stranger, not your brother," he shouted, the years of shared experience and loyalty clashing with Uso's newly adopted authority. But Uso remained calm, emphasizing responsibility over emotion. Standing beside him, his posture unwavering, he continued, "Standing by my side isn't enough anymore. Loyalty must be proven. Brotherhood must be competent. Family legacy must be protected." The interaction demonstrated a profound tension between familial affection and hierarchical control, as Uso prioritized the latter with strategic rigor, while Jimmy clung to the values of shared history and unconditional support. The birth of a new tribal chief. The culmination of the confrontation arrived with an ultimatum. Uso, now fully embodying the role of evaluator and leader, presented a choice: acknowledge his authority or risk exclusion from the family legacy. "You will acknowledge me as the head of this family, or you will find yourself on the outside looking in," he declared. In doing so, he formalized a hierarchical structure that replaced brotherhood with authority, control with connection, and evaluation with empathy. Jimmy, struck by the magnitude of this declaration, finally recognized the depth of the transformation in his twin. A shift from partner and ally to arbiter and judge, enacting a role Roman had mastered but now wielded without the balancing factor of love. Legacy versus personal bond. Throughout the confrontation, the underlying theme became unmistakable. The preservation of the bloodline's legacy could demand sacrifices from its members. Uso internalized Roman's philosophy, where personal relationships are subordinate to the institutional needs of the family. He rationalized that difficult decisions, even those that might sever emotional bonds, were necessary to protect the lineage from further threats. Yet the audience and observers understood the tragic irony. In assuming the mantle of leadership, Uso replicated Roman's authority but lost the relational trust that made leadership sustainable. In seeking to protect the family, he risked destroying its heart. The emotional fallout. By the end of the segment, Jimmy's heartbreak and anger were palpable. "You're not my brother anymore," he declared, mourning a relationship that had defined his identity and life for decades. The sentiment underscored the human cost of power and authority, revealing the tension between control and connection. Uso's triumph was strategic and philosophical, but it came at the price of emotional rupture. Wrestling fans, backstage observers, and the wider audience recognized that what unfolded wasn't merely a storyline, it was an exploration of how loyalty. Reflection on power and corruption. The transformation of Uso serves as a cautionary tale about the corrupting influence of authority when wielded without empathy. Leadership, as demonstrated by Roman, had succeeded because it balanced control with care, manipulation with respect, and strategy with relational understanding. Uso adopted the mechanics of authority, but lacked the human element, demonstrating that technical skill alone cannot sustain loyalty or cohesion. Conclusion: last night's confrontation was a masterclass in storytelling, combining emotion, strategy, and psychological intensity. Uso's transformation from loyal brother to calculating leader, mirroring Roman's methods but without his heart, demonstrated the fragile balance between authority and empathy. Jimmy's heartbreak illuminated the human cost of unchecked ambition, and the bloodline's legacy now hangs in a precarious state, tested by power, betrayal, and familial tension. The wrestling world witnessed not only the birth of a new tribal chief, but also the death of brotherhood in its most intimate and tragic form. The lesson was clear. Authority without compassion can preserve legacy, but it can destroy love.